Here we go.
Okay.
Technical.
We figured it out. Okay, it's working. Hello.
Where were they?
Hello and welcome to Monk Chat. It is Friday night here at Empty Cloud Monastery. This is an opportunity that we regularly have on Friday nights for the yogis here at Empty Cloud Monastery to ask questions. And also for those of you who are watching remotely to type in questions for us to answer. There's no formal Dhamma talk as part of the program. My name is Venerable Wade Buripanyo. I ordained at Wat Mapchan in Rayong province in Thailand in 2014 in the tradition of Ajahn Chah. And I have with me Bhante Metiko. I'll ask him to introduce himself.
As Venerable said, I'm Bhante Metiko, and I took my full ordination here at Empty Cloud recently.
Right. It was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? Do you remember the date?
Yeah, but 3:26.
3:26.
At 3:11 Eastern Standard Time.
Right. Wow. Excellent.
Sadhu. We need to remember those. It's important.
Okay, so let's start off with the traditional Namo Tassa, and then we'll start taking questions. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Bhutang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. All right. So we have some questions coming in online already, or some comments. We have Sood writing in, whom we had the pleasure of meeting last night at the monastery. It says Sood is saying, oh, it's already scrolling because more comments are coming in. Okay, let's see here. Let's see, pardon me. There's those. We have a number of comments and questions already, and so they're scrolling by us. We're trying to catch up with them in just a moment. We have Kumu writing in, and Karen with Anjali's and Gayatri, Julie as well, Douglas, and Wasabi-chan, Kim Gordon, and Sood with an Anjali, and then he says, he types in, Dear Bhante, thank you for the wonderful rounds of loving kindness the other day. Do you recommend one does this more often? And what are the benefits should we expect? Would it help in calming the mind to attain samadhi? Okay, wonderful question, Sood. So yes. Well, yeah, so here, Sood is referring to it here at Empty Cloud Monastery last night. We did several rounds of loving kindness chanting several of the loving kindness suttas and traditional chants from the Thai Buddhist tradition. For example, the Karaniya Metta Sutta. We chanted what we call the reflection on universal well-being, which is taken from the suttas. It's a reflection for each of the 4 Brahma Viharas. We also chanted verses of sharing merit and other verses as well from the sutras and traditional chants. And we chanted for almost an hour, cycling through these chants one after the other. And it was the first time I've ever done it. I've ever participated in something like this, and it was something I wanted to do for a while. The idea came from my own meditation practice years ago when I was starting to practice loving kindness meditation as one of my kammatthana, as we call it in the Thai Forest tradition, coming from the Pali. It's basically one of my main meditation themes. And what I would do for this practice is I had 3 loving kindness chants that I would cycle through, chanting silently to myself as one about my daily activities, and I found it very rewarding. And so a group of us, probably about 10 people, monastics and laity, last night, were chanting like this together. And so So Sood enjoyed this, and he says, do you recommend one does this more often, and what are the benefits that we could expect? Would it help in calming the mind to attain samadhi? And I think it's if you think that loving kindness is a suitable meditation theme for you to practice on an ongoing basis, then I certainly could recommend it. It's loving kindness is one of the 40 kammatthana. That's the traditional meditation themes in the Theravadan tradition. And it does, according to the suttas, it does lead to samadhi. And so if you practice it quite regularly and develop the theme, it should be rewarding in that way. So I'd like to highly recommend it if I could, Sud. All right. I wonder if you have an additional comment.
Yes, I would highly recommend the practice loving kindness. It's a very powerful meditation. And chanting is, I think, I find it very powerful. And a way of calming the mind and it's a good way to recollect the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, or if you're chanting, doing the loving kindness suttas, it's a good way to recollect it.
Excellent. Could mention the loving kindness is, according to the tradition, specifically recommended for displacing ill will or aversion, you might say. And so it can be used as a regular meditation theme for someone who experiences this as a common defilement, and that is aversion or ill will. And so it could be practiced on an ongoing basis for this kind of personality type. It also could be practiced kind of more tactically, you might say, in given situations. So if you find yourself irritated, annoyed, angry over something, in particular, loving kindness meditation could be a practical way of meditating to overcome that mental state. When the meditation is developed actually as a meditation theme, it isn't always necessarily done in this way. It is quite common actually to do it in a much simpler way than chanting the entire sutta repeatedly. For example, we might use a simple repetitive saying like, may I be well, happy, and peaceful. May I be well, happy, and peaceful. And silently repeating this to oneself and developing this wish for oneself. You can initiate this feeling of caring for oneself, and it's very calming to the heart, very relaxing. It feels very good. And having developed this feeling for oneself through this wish, then one can start sharing this wish with others as well. So one might then move on to thinking of one's spiritual teachers, for example, or one's parents, or other people that one holds in high regard and has a lot of love for, and sharing this with them. And then perhaps moving on to people who are your friends, for example, friends and other family members. And then on to someone whom we might have more of a neutral relationship with, someone you come in contact with from time to time, but that you don't have very strong feelings for one way or another, really, perhaps. And then with this strong wish in the heart, you can move on to people whom you have a difficult relationship with. One of the tricks here is to be mindful of what's happening, how well it's going, you might say. If you're able to maintain this wish for their well-being, for their happiness, then you can continue with it. But sometimes when we get into people just trying to share loving kindness with people whom we have a difficult relationship with, we might find we might have to back off and think of someone else. So we have to be attentive to how the mind is going and how we're feeling.
That's a good point.
Okay. Oftentimes, it's said that oftentimes Westerners have difficulty starting with themselves. We have difficulty starting with ourselves. And so one teacher recommended, well, you can start instead with someone whom you already have quite good feelings about. So, for example, our parents or other beloved relatives, for example. And then once the wish is strong in the heart, then come back to ourselves, and then move through the progression as I was talking about. But there are many ways to practice loving kindness meditation. So again, this chanting is just one way. There are ways of doing it using visualization, for example, or sharing loving kindness by direction, in a directional way instead of in regard to people. Mm-hmm. So could be quite a lengthy talk about loving kindness if we get into it in detail. But it's certainly worth studying and maybe talking about more if you find it very, very useful and interesting to you.
Thank you for this excellent instruction, beautiful
Sure.
instruction.
Sure.
Such an important practice.
Okay. Let's see. We have another comment from Kim. Let me ask you to read that.
Yes, Kim is.
Sorry, so good.
Yeah, Kim is promoting a video from Bhante Siddhasu, who gave a talk about karma and rebirth. And it is a frequent question, and that is one of the reasons I think Bhante Siddhasu did a very in-depth and beautiful talk about karma and rebirth. So people that have interest in that, there's a video on the Buddhist Insights channel discussing that. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Let's see if I can actually do this. Technical issues.
Yeah.
See how I used to do it, and I'll let you.
Okay. We need more millennials to ordain.
Yeah. We were just discussing the decline of our computer literacy.
Okay. I think I accidentally fast forwarded. Here we go. So Manal has joined us. Hello, Manal. And we have Shadow of Label has written in a question. It says, do you guys have any opinions on the new Beavis and Butthead episode where they were is there a way to increase the font size actually? I don't know if you don't know off the top of your head, I guess it's not worth looking at. Okay. Beavis and I think I got better. Okay. I think I got it now. Do you guys have any opinions on the new Beavis and Butthead episode where they went to heaven through enlightenment and left when they reminded themselves of hunger?
I would just say monastics, we don't watch TV. And if I was watching TV, I don't know if I've watched Beavis and Butthead. I never did. I'm not saying anything bad about the creator or people that watch it. I don't mean anything. I'm sure it's a very entertaining show. I just never watched it in light life. In monastics.
Sure. Yes, so yes, I haven't seen this episode. I did watch 1 or 2 episodes of Beavis and Butthead when I was a layman many years ago. So at least I know what the reference is. Okay. This is an interesting question, though, about where they went to heaven through enlightenment and left when they reminded themselves of hunger. And it's quite an interesting point. I'd like to see that. I'm kind of curious about this episode, but it says in the scriptures that all living beings depend on nutriment, and there are 4 kinds of nutriment that we depend on. And one of them, the first one discussed in the sutras about this, is gross physical food. And it's because of an interest and a desire for gross physical food, the kind of food we eat, that is one of the reasons that we as living beings will crave after and have attachment and a desire to have a body. And because of this attachment, become dependent on having a body. Also, we make a body, I should say, and we depend on the body here in samsara, and go on seeking food, gross physical food, as well as the other forms of nutriment. So it's quite an important topic in Buddhism. Actually, if we ask ourselves, why do we suffer? We look back to the second noble truth, and we have that we suffer because of craving for sensual pleasures, for becoming, and for non-becoming. So with food, we see aspects of this right there. We see the desire for sensual pleasures and the flavors and so on with regard flavors of food, and also the textures and other aspects of it as well, and the cooking and the smells of the sense of the food and so on. There's also the aspect of craving for becoming, because interestingly, wrapped up in the acts of eating, we have also the activity itself. Living beings have a hankering after chewing and consuming, chewing and swallowing. It's a very kind of primal thing that living beings engage in. And we see this in monastics, I think, find this as a distinct experience because we fast past midday every day. And we find that our metabolism changes over time. And our bodies change over time, and this becomes quite a normal activity for us. But still, we can really find sometimes we just want to eat something. It can be quite it's an interesting experience because you may not be interested in a flavor, for example, but there's something about just wanting to bite into something and chew it, for example. You see where I'm coming from. So there's these two aspects to it that actually you can find in many activities: the desire for sensual pleasures and the desire for the actual activity itself, just performing the activity. I think, and so you mentioned that they in this episode they went to heaven through enlightenment, and they left when they reminded themselves of hunger. And so this idea of hunger reminds me of these aspects of the practice and the causes of our suffering. What prevents us from attaining enlightenment in the first place?
Beautiful thoughts. No, that was that's better than. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Jayanta?
She's saying there's a
No
problem with
sound.
sound.
Oh, that's interesting.
If there's, I don't know if everyone can hear us. If they could let us know.
Right. I guess we'd have to. So someone wrote in at 7:37. So about 15 minutes ago, saying there's no sound. And if we can get
just a thumbs up on the sound if the sound is working.
Right.
Says thanks. So I guess it's working.
Oh, then we have a comment from the same person again saying thanks. So perhaps the sound is working now. Okay. Very good. Jayanta, welcome, Jayanta. So we have a comment from Gayatri.
Do you want me to read it?
Please, okay.
Dear Bhantes, how can we stay on the path when at work I know that there are some dishonest members in the team? Is it right to say something if I see something? And then quotations, I don't work for the TSA.
Okay.
Right.
Because that's their slogan, I think, right? If you see something, say something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good.
Right. Okay. How can we stay on the path? This is interesting. I'm thinking about how this relates to the path and the path and how we might define the path for different people. Of course, at one level, the path might be indicated very straightforwardly as a Noble Eightfold path. Another way of looking at the path is maybe a little bit broader. Those who are on the path of practicing service, for example, or maybe practicing Buddhism for the hope of a better rebirth, for example, in the human realm here in heaven and so on. We have a teaching on sila or morality, you might say, with regard to speech. If we look at the 10 courses of skillful action and unskillful action, we have the unskillful ones being lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle chatter, useless talk. And so the Buddha recommends abstaining from those kinds of speech because they lead us on a course towards suffering. Really, they're unskillful. It's the meaning of the word unskillful, that they lead us towards suffering. And so if you see someone at work is being dishonest, is it right to say something if you see them doing something wrong? This is a little bit vague. I apologize, Gayatri. It's a little bit vague. And so you may have to use this kind of information about what the courses of skillful action are and compare it to what's going on at work and consider the impact of saying things, what kind of consequences you might expect, and what kind of consequences are coming from the behavior you're seeing that you think is dishonest. For example, so you have to weigh the different factors involved. But the Buddha is a blanket rule. He said to avoid being dishonest, avoid lying, avoid harsh speech, avoid idle chatter, and avoid divisive speech. Divisive speech is an interesting one. It's speech that's kind of motivated by trying to divide people. So if you're at work trying to, for example, your idea is to cause people to be split up or to be in conflict with each other, or to lose their friendship. And that would be a kind of speech to abstain from. Some kinds of speech, of course, they seem like they're coming close to this if we consider the consequences of what will happen. But a lot of it depends on our motivation and how we go about it. So we have to look at it from that point of view, I think. I wonder if you have any advice about that.
Thank you, Venerable. It is hard sometimes working or being around people that may not have the same sila that we have. And during those times, in a way, we can use it to strengthen our sila. If someone's dishonest, we are honest. If someone is harsh, we become gentle. And we use that as maybe a way to even strengthen our own practice. And sometimes it's also using compassion. Why are people lying? What's happening with them? And it gives us a chance to really, look at that. What's happening with them? Are they lying? What is the reason behind that dishonesty? And that can sometimes, compassion can arise in us as we think about, they're going through this, or maybe they're dishonest, maybe they're scared of something. And so it's important to think about those things. And as, do we say something? Yeah, I think, as Bhante said, looking deeper into maybe getting some more information, but what's the ramifications of that? It is important to say something sometimes, and sometimes, we don't.
Sadhu. All right. Very good. Oh, sorry, Teddy. Yeah, the cat is here as well. Teddy is here with us.
Interfering with the technical.
I think we should. He's trying to. Licking my fingers. I'm trying to use the mouse. Sorry. Okay. Oops. Okay. Oops. It seems to be working well. Maybe if I scroll and you read.
Go.
All right. Here we go. Kumu.
Is it possible, this is from Kumu, is it possible to carry a certain level of samadhi outside of formal meditation settings? Is it a high level of mindfulness and clear comprehension, or is it much more than that?
What do you think? Would you like to answer this?
Yeah, I will just say that in daily life, the deeper levels of concentration, you wouldn't necessarily want to carry those things. For example, you don't want to be in a deep level of concentration as you're driving. I think it could be somewhat disastrous. Maybe get in a wreck when you become very focused and very concentrated. Sorry, the cat's eating things. So the cat's breaking my concentration. So that level of samadhi is deep samadhi that we may have in formal sitting on the mat and deep meditation is different from the level of samadhi or concentration we may have outside of that. And that's okay. We should have a level of present awareness throughout our daily activities. But that deep level of concentration is really in formal meditation.
Right. Okay. Sadhu. Right. Yes. They're. If we talk about deep samadhi, I think it's really true. There's stories about one Mechi. She would be in samadhi while practicing walking meditation. She'd be so intent on her meditation object. Internally, she would kind of veer off of her walking meditation path, off into the woods a little bit, and suddenly realize and come back and get back on her walking meditation path. This was a relatively common occurrence for her, because she was meditating on the parts of the body while doing walking meditation. She had according to the story, she had really amazing samadhi, so she could be so focused on an image, for example, that she had of a part of the human body internally, that she'd lose kind of contact with her surroundings. But if we look at it from the point of view of mindfulness and clear comprehension, this is something that ideally we'll have at all times. We want to practice in such a way that it's safe. And so that when we're trying to do our meditation practice in our daily activities, we want to be cognizant of, are we really aware of things in a way that is safe for us and safe for other people. So this is a key point. But you can develop mindfulness and clear comprehension to a level of samadhi that they call access concentration. This is something that's talked about in the commentaries. There's a threefold discussion of samadhi in the commentaries: the kanika, upachara, and apana samadhi. Get into quite a bit of detail here. I apologize. And so kanika is momentary, and upachara is access or neighborhood concentration, as they call it, and apana is a kind of very deep a state of absorption where one doesn't have contact with the outside world, really, the external sense bases, but is completely focused on the meditation object within their own heart. And so that would be, obviously not really appropriate for going about your daily activities, but this would be more. But the access level of concentration still is an aspect of samadhi, the mental collectedness. The heart is all together, but still receiving sensory information through, from the outside, and one can go about daily activities in this state of concentration, and one can develop one's concentration to a point where one has this, even as one's going about one's daily activities. And one can attain insight knowledge in this way as well. So it's a really wonderful thing. It doesn't have as much power as the apana samadhi, the full absorption samadhi. So, but still, it's one that's very versatile. An aspect of samadhi that's very versatile. The key thing is the mindfulness and the clear comprehension on the right kinds of objects and the assiduous practice, backed up with right view and with morality, the other factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, so that one can then begin investigating sensory experience as it's occurring and develop the insight knowledge. So if we work on our mindfulness and clear comprehension in our formal meditation, and then try to be mindful with suitable objects as we're going about our daily activities, over time it may be something we can develop.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, go on to Asantha. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hello.
Santa says, in the sutras, tens of thousands attained enlightenment despite only hearing one or two teachings. We have access to all the teachings, yet there seems few living arahants. Why do you think that is?
Please go ahead if you have a comment.
Well, one, it's important to remember, I think, well, actually a couple of things. Who was giving the teaching? We have a lot of teachings from the Buddha. And so I think there's a lot of power in that. And the Buddha had the ability to really see in the hearts and minds of people and know exactly what a person needed to hear or say, and be able to deliver that teaching to awaken that part of them. The other thing, when we read about people, it may seem like, oh, they just heard this word and they became enlightened. That's just one part of the story that we're hearing. We're not hearing everything that led up to that point. All the paramis that they developed, everything that they developed right up to that point when they heard that teaching. And to be able to be in the presence of the Buddha, the Lord Buddha, and to have a teaching from him, direct from him, obviously they've already developed a lot of spiritual qualities just to be at that point. And so we hear that, and sometimes we read the sutras and we're like, wow, they just were, it's not like they were just walking down the street and oh man, they hear something and become enlightened. It's all these things that came before that we may not have in that sutta itself, that we hear that part of their life story. So I think that's, important to remember. We're just catching a snippet of what's happened in their life. We're catching the end part of it. We're not seeing everything that happened before that.
Sadhu. There are many of the stories of the past lives and the conditions of these arhants are in the commentaries, and they'll go into detail about exactly these kinds of things. What such and such a disciple had been doing in previous lives.
Yes.
that led them to have the good karma to meet the Buddha himself and attain enlightenment. And some of them had actually made determinations in previous lives to actually attain the Dhamma very quickly. For example, Anya Kondanya was his determination to be the first disciple to become a Sotapanna, was that it? Or to see the Dhamma, euphemism for attaining Sotapanna. And so that's why Anya Kondanya attained Sotapanna upon hearing the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha's first sermon. I'm trying to remember the name of another one, the one who made the determination to attain arhatship the quickest, but I can't remember his name. His name incorporates the term for bark cloth, because he was a samana who was wearing an outfit of bark cloth. I was doubting whether he was actually a samana. The story is he was a shipwreck victim, and according to the commentaries, and he found some bark cloth to cover himself with, and basically. And people started calling him an arhat, and a Dewa came to him and said, "No, you're not an arhat yet, and you don't even know how to attain arhatship." And so he asked the Dewa, "How do I do it? What do I do? Actually, I'm actually attaining arhatship now." Apparently, the shipwreck kind of shook him up a bit, and he started thinking about matters of life and death, and so the Dewa recommended you go see the Buddha, and so this man of the bark cloth. He was able to follow the directions and met the Buddha, and he requested a teaching from the Buddha. And the Buddha gave him a teaching. There's only 2 or 3 or 4 sentences. Actually, it's in the suttas, and the whole backstory is not in the suttas, but it's just simply the story of him meeting the Buddha and the Buddha giving him this teaching, and he attains enlightenment after just 3 or 4 sentences. There's a backstory about how he made a determination in a previous life to see the Dhamma, to attain arhatship. The quickest of any of the Buddha's disciples, and so he had to develop a lot of parami in the past in order to do that. Okay. But I think on the hopeful side is that if we sometimes we might think, why is it so hard for us to attain enlightenment or something like this, and if we think about that, all of these enlightened disciples also had to build the same kinds of causes and conditions, good karma, the parami. And it's a matter of these kinds of cause and effect relationships. That they're able to meet a Buddha and get this kind of a teaching and so on like this. And so the efforts that we're putting in now, one of the teachings about this is the efforts that we're putting in now, even if sometimes we feel like it can be difficult and it can be very hard and maybe we feel like we're not making progress. One of the points is that actually none of it is lost. And as long as we keep trying, we'll keep developing ourselves spiritually, and we'll be lost, and there will be a benefit from it in the future. So you start seeing some benefit now as well. All right. I've also lost my way in the live stream list of questions here. There's many.
And it looks like someone's flooding the live stream.
Right. Okay.
I think.
Okay.
I believe it's no.
When we got up now, it says Santa. Here we go. Okay, we have a hello from Adrian, and then we have Wasabi-chan. Go ahead.
The Venerables, what exactly did the Buddha mean in diluting bad karma like salt in water? We still have to experience the negative results of our actions, right?
Good question. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Okay. I'll take it first. Well, this is a teaching. It's interesting. He says this comes from the suttas. There's a sutta in which the Buddha says that if we say that karma is experienced as it's performed, we experience the consequences of bad karma. This is specifically about bad karma. If we experience the results. If we say that we experience the results of bad karma in line with how we perform them, then this is not actually true necessarily, because there is the case where if we can make the heart large, if we can enlarge the heart, then when bad karma ripens and we experience the consequence of it, it will be diluted, basically like salt in a large body of water. Compared to if the heart is not enlarged, if the mind is not enlarged, then it will be like a substantial amount of salt in a very small amount of water. That's the result, the consequence of the bad karma. And so it seems to me it's a teaching about meditation practice. Thank you. Through meditation practice, if we're able to attain samadhi, bring the heart all together, and then the heart can become expansive as well. This is talked about multiple times, I believe, in the sutras in regard to the Brahma Viharas, for example, where the Buddha recommends that we develop a heart of loving kindness, like encompassing the entire world, for example, or that it becomes vast and spacious, like the sound of a conch shell being blown. Mm-hmm. So this kind of a teaching, I think, is about this. We're going into meditation and or having good enough samadhi that the heart can be quite large, sort of very constricted and or scattered kind of thing. So, if you have any comments here.
No, it's a beautiful way of putting it. And yeah, I would look at it. It's not necessarily diluting it, as Bhante said, as expanding the heart. So when the results of our actions ripens, when that karma ripens, if we have a lot of good actions, if our heart is full, it has less impact. I think one way I heard it described it.
Right.
Which really resonated with me. And I was listening to a Dhamma talk from John, who talked about having a garden. If you have a lot of flowers, a lot of good actions, a big heart, just like a lot of flowers, if one weed comes up, you're not really going to worry about it. But if you have a very barren surface, all of a sudden you're really going to notice those weeds, or those weeds come up. It's going to be much more noticeable and have a greater impact. And so that idea of, yes, the Buddha gives the example of a large body of water. If you put a little bit of salt, you won't taste it. And that's what I think really the Buddha is pointing to with that.
Okay. All right, we're going to Manal. I have a comment from Manal as well.
Dear Bhantes, I learned so much from Bhante Siddhasa's recent talk on samadhi and how to cultivate a clear and accurate perception of reality. What are your best methods for maintaining alertness? And then it continues, during the day when there is inconsistent sleep at night. So I guess the question is, how do you stay alert when you're tired?
Sure. Right. Any sleep problems, right? But also perhaps for any kind of reason for being fatigued. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Sure. Well, one thing that I do, for example, that alertness is just turning it. Oh, my body's really tired today. You turn that alertness, awareness, even to that tiredness. You don't let that tiredness overcome yourself, so to speak.
I wonder if we ask for just a pause just for a moment. I wonder, would it be possible to maybe put Teddy in the sewing room? He oftentimes stays there.
Upstairs. It's pretty agitated.
If there's not too agitated, yeah. Yes, if it's safe to do so.
Cool down first.
Okay, sure. That's right.
We have some cat technical difficulties. So for me, that's one way that I maintain alertness when I'm tired, is just turn that attention towards that feeling of tiredness. What does it feel like? Where is it in the body? Where is it in the mind? The other thing to maintain alertness throughout the day, what I might do is just having awareness of the body. I'm walking. How's it feel when I'm sitting? I'm doing this. And just having awareness of the body postures and the body movement, and always returning my awareness and my alertness to, for example, it's pretty easy. The feet, you're walking or you're sitting. How's it feel right now as I'm sitting? And put my attention in the body. And you can do that even when you're tired, even when the body is aching. In some ways, I think it's almost sharpens awareness.
Great. could offer another idea. Sometimes it's helpful to have a few different techniques, especially if you're having, if this is a common problem, having difficulty with sleep. Another way is to perhaps to move your awareness around if you have the opportunity, if you don't have to be focused on one particular thing, for example. So if you're in a situation where you can try to really be mindful of, well, what am I seeing? And then move the awareness to what am I hearing, for example, and what am I feeling with the body? This can raise your alertness level, moving the mind around a little bit, you might say, keeping it a little bit active. But again, it depends on the situation, if it's really suitable, if you have to be focused on one thing, for example.
Yeah, I would also, during those times for myself, like walking meditation, if I'm doing meditation with the eyes open, or even doing walking meditation, can bring that alertness kind of in and kind of refresh the body and the mind.
Right.
I think really walking meditation
So
is good for that.
If one wants to practice sitting meditation in this kind of a situation, or if you find it's more suitable, say, for example, you're in a vehicle or something like this, you might also try choosing an inspiring theme. So, for example, practicing recollection of the Buddha, the Dhamma, or the Sangha, or recollection of one's own generosity, kind of the good deeds you've done, or recollection of your virtue, your sila, or recollection of the day was. All of these are inspiring themes that help to kind of energize the mind if we focus on. So those are some possibilities as well.
And I will say, sometimes you just need to take a nap if you're feeling very fatigued. If you're able to, don't take a nap while you're driving. Yeah, so public safety announcement. But yeah, sometimes if you're really fatigued, that's part of having awareness. My body's just really tired right now. I'm really tired, and I need to take a nap, or I need to lay down. If that's possible, that's not always possible.
I'd like to ask a question. Our friends always write in questions to us, but now I'd like to take an opportunity to ask a question back to Manal. Manal wrote in a week or two ago that, Manal, you had recently started the practice of meditating 20 minutes every day. And you mentioned it was difficult. You're noticing quite a lot of thinking going on, which is a common experience, I think, for us when we start meditating. And I wanted to ask if you've been able to keep up your meditation practice and how you feel it's going now. So if you're willing to take a moment and type in for us, we'd be interested to read.
So,
all right. If EGOD is sending us an Anjali, we have a comment or a question from Julie also. Here we go.
Julie says, how to set limits with preteens greed? They want more and more. There is more contrast as I renunciate more of my belongings, and they want more experiences and things overall, and more expensive compared to what they had before.
Right, okay. What would you suggest?
Well, first, I would say it's a developmentally, that's what you see with preteens and teens. Developmentally, they oftentimes they're in that mindset of, I don't want to say greed, but consumption, and they're just looking at these products. And we also live in a society that really, unfortunately, I think, pushes that on adults and younger people. And sometimes younger people don't have all the things in place not to easily get caught up by it. And so I think the first thing is just having that understanding, like, wow, this is pretty normal for somebody this age and typical for someone this age. But also a way to, I think that is really nice, is to show them the benefits of generosity, show them the benefits. What's the mind feel like when it's greedy, when it wants to consume, when it's comparing itself to other people? And what's the mind feel like when we give, or when we are generous to others, or when we volunteer our time, our services to a needy organization or somebody that is in need? how is that different? How does our mind feel? And I also think one of the most important ways, especially that younger people learn, is through seeing us and through examples. So if this is the Julie that I'm thinking of, Julie, who has visited the monastery before, I know you're a very generous person. And so just continuing that and allowing them to see that and seeing the benefits of that, I think kids really learn those things. The other part of it is preteens in general, a lot of patience. It's an opportunity to practice patience. And just going through that, yeah.
Is there any way you can give guidance about how, in terms of if we were talking about kind of more black and white or like bottom line kind of things, in terms of if a preteen is asking for more and more things, especially more and more expensive things, well, how does a parent know like what, where to draw the line and how to set those limits and communicate about them with a preteen? I wonder if you have any suggestions in regard to
that. Well, it's hard. Sometimes you just have to say, like, set those limits and say, no, like, do you really, I don't know if this is happening. And really showing the benefits of the difference between a need and a desire and having those conversations. Do you really need the latest iPhone? Or can you use this phone? And I gave those examples of kids learn from us. And so a very practical way is, setting those limits. You can have this, but only this. You can't have, there's no reason for you to have, for example, I'm going to go back to the fun and say, the only thing I can think of right now. You can, let's say you need a phone. You don't need the latest iPhone, even if your friends have it. And I know that's hard for you, and I know you want it, but this is what it is. And I think, pulling in those ideas of generosity, but also renunciation, as I see it in ourselves and as the Buddha taught, like the benefits from that. And so sometimes it's finding those other things that maybe they're willing to live without. And so it's also looking at those aspects as well. Maybe there's something that, do you want to, I want to go do this activity. I want to go spend time with my friends or go do these things. I think the examples, you want more belongings and more activities, more experiences. So part of that renunciation, here's a different experience. I'm going to ask you to give up this experience, but let's have this experience instead. Let's spend time together as a family. Let's go to the monastery and those things. Those are other ways that.
Wonderful. Right.
Might do it.
I think you touched on what I want to ask you a number of questions about this, because I know you have a background in child psychology. I do, yes, and so I think your opinion is very, very worthwhile to get on these things. Yes. Okay. Well, you touched on one aspect of things, which, if I understand correctly, is a big issue for teens and preteens, and really for everybody, actually, to some extent or other, which is peer pressure. And I wonder if you, okay. And how, I wonder how you'd guide, or what kind of recommendations you'd have for the parent in regard to dealing with this kind of an issue with the child. How the child could handle or deal with the peer pressure, for example, how the parent could guide them.
Because it is, it's complex and it's hard sometimes because it's such a difficult time. It's a difficult time for parents. It's a difficult time for young people because, again, developmentally, it is a stage where they start to pull away from adults and parents. They want to listen to their friends more than their parents. Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And so, again, a powerful thing that we can do as adults is provide that example, provide that role model for them to really see the benefits of Sila, to really see the benefits of that life. And I do think, most importantly, is providing that support and that love through metta. And as we develop those qualities in our own hearts, kids, everyone sees that. And as we really develop that, I think it shines forth. And in a way, it pulls and it provides that security for both ourselves and also other people. The same thing with our sila. As we develop our sila, it protects ourselves, but it also protects others. And so that's the most important thing that we really can do, is provide that example for our children. What is it like? Like, I meditate. What is the benefit of meditation? And they see the benefit of meditation. What is the benefit of generosity? They see the benefit of generosity. And so it can be a very trying time. Teens, as I said, I jokingly said, like, oh, it really develops your patience. And I've always said that children really, in a way, develop our practice. It's a true test of our practice. And so there's a lot of forgiveness. There's a lot of loving kindness. There's a lot of compassion that we have to do. And most importantly is making sure that we provide an environment and making sure our children are safe and do those things for them.
Wonderful. I think for parents, it is quite difficult in these kinds of situations, because they feel like they have a responsibility to their children, and they feel like they have a responsibility to make their children happy. And so if a child is repeatedly asking for things and bothering them for things, and then it can also try the patience as well, and there can be temptations sometimes just to cave in and give the child what they want. And so I think it's important to kind of to have some contemplations to use, or some ways to kind of let go, and to not get caught up in the emotions that are involved in the relationship too much, so that we get swayed by them too much. So with our children, we want to have a lot of loving kindness and patience, but also I think we need to look at that this is an impermanent kind of situation. That this is, as Bhante was saying, this is a phase that's going through. It's quite natural and normal, but it's also still a phase, and the situation is going to come to an end at some point. This kind of wanting for things. If we can reflect on that, then that helps us feel more kind of at ease about it. We feel more like we can endure it. We can go through it. If we reflect on, in the future, they may be just like us. So, for example, you're going through a phase of renunciation. Sadhu, your phase of renunciation. If you reflect, well, actually, in the future, my child, who now is going through this particular phase of acquisitiveness, may go through a phase of renunciation, and so we feel more relaxed about it. Let it go as it's an impermanent thing. You also can look at how perhaps discuss with the child about that the acquisition of material objects and experiences are impermanent, and they're not ultimately satisfying. And so if you can point to, well, last time we got you this, or last time you went out and did that, and now you're back asking for something else, right. And do you notice that you get something you think is so important and you want it so badly, but then after you get it, there's how long does the satisfaction last, and before you just want something else. This is going to be very educational, I think, for a child about these processes.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think sometimes some people have to go through those things. Our children have to kind of explore those things, and as Bhante said, they end up right where we are
eventually.
In terms, we lay the groundwork. I would also recommend. I was trying to remember that book. There's a book, I think it's Teen's Guide on Buddhism, which is a nice book, and it's a book you could read together with your teen, and there's some exercises and questions in there, which I think is good for them.
Wonderful. All right. Oh gosh. You're getting some, what you said, some flooding here, okay. So we have Wasabi-chan.
Yeah. All right. Can I dedicate merit to any being in any state, living or dead, human or animal, and they will still receive some benefit?
Okay, great question. Sure. Okay, so the I have to say that some of this I have to just relate on faith or based on teachings that I've heard, and I can't say so I have to say that up front as a caveat. The teaching on sharing merit doesn't come in the suttas. We have this in the Theravada tradition. It comes to us from the commentaries. We don't find it in the suttas. And it's a common teaching in Theravadan countries in general. I think we find it in Burma and Thailand at least. I think other Buddhist countries also. So the masters of the Thai force tradition, for example, teach that you can definitely share merit with living beings in a variety of kinds of states that they may be in, wherever they are. But apparently there are some limits also. So, for example, one master teacher once said that you can't really share merit with beings who are in hell, for example. But then he corrected himself a little bit. He said, well, you can, but you have to have an extremely powerful mind. So you have to have a very well-developed mind to do something like that. So I don't really know too much about that myself, I have to say. So that's the teaching that I heard. The same teacher was saying, well, you can share merit, for example, with other human beings. And in some cases, it can help them recover from health problems, for example. I told a story from the life of Ajahn Chah before, and there's another story from a monastery I stayed at where the father of one of the monks had a serious kidney condition. And so the master asked the many monks who were living there to all share merit with this monk's father. And the health condition had been diagnosed by an allopathic physician, and later found shortly thereafter that the health condition was resolved. I was quite surprised to hear about this story, and I knew these monks, and I asked the monk whose father was sick, and he verified. He says, actually, that is what happened. He said that just the story, just as you told it, just as I related it to him, this is what I'd heard. He said, actually, that is exactly what happened. But so the masters typically recommend sharing merit with our relatives and with our karmic creditors. That is, karmic creditors being beings we've harmed in the past. They say this is a very important practice for us. So perhaps I guess that's good enough for that. Should we add anything to it? Okay.
The only thing the benefit for also yourself, dedicating merit.
Right. It's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up, Bhante. I asked one teacher about the merit that we make for ourselves when we share merit with others. And I actually asked him, is it a merit in the form of dana, like generosity, or is it a merit in the form of bhavana, as a kind of meditation? And he says it's bhavana, which is really nice to hear, because dana, the merit from dana is very good, of course, but the merit from bhavana, as meditation, is much stronger. So it's a very beneficial practice for ourselves as well.
Yeah.
According to this teaching.
Yeah, you can really feel it when you dedicate merit in your own mind. What does your mind feel like when you dedicate merit? It's a beautiful thing.
Sadhu. Okay, we have another question from from Z.
Dear Bhantes, what are your thoughts on the war in Ukraine?
That's the war in Ukraine. Right.
I mean, any war is horrible. It's horrible for people that are killing it. It's horrible for people that it's a horrible thing.
Right.
Have compassion for all beings infected.
Sadhu, yes. Yeah. Well, I've only heard some bits about it over the years. I guess it's over a year now. I shouldn't say over the years, but over a year now that the conflict has been going on. And I, for most of the time, I haven't had any access to the news. I did come across something on YouTube recently. It was very unusual that I'd find something like this, and it was actually one of the soldiers, a Ukrainian soldier, a commander of a unit with a body cam, as he was going through a firefight defending the trench that they were in outside of Bakhmut. I just came across this last night, or yesterday afternoon, was watching it. And it was quite an experience. They had a translation of what he was saying on the screen as well, which I don't know, but it alleged to be a translation of what he was saying, the orders he was yelling, and his comments over the radio to other soldiers in the field nearby as well, and those were giving guidance to him. It was quite a powerful experience to watch something like this. And it made me think about what a terrible situation it is to be in battle. I think I never have been, but experiencing that it made me think of how terrible it must be. And it sparked a number of contemplations. One of which is about how unfortunately normal this is. That it seems at any given time there's some kind of an armed conflict going on somewhere. So this is a relatively normal experience for human beings to find themselves in a war zone, whether as actual soldiers themselves, or as innocent bystanders, as inhabitants of the country, and so on, and how dangerous it is to be in samsara. One disciple of one Dhamma talk that's relatively well known in the Ajahn Chah Sangha was given by one of the Western monks, in which he made reference to the idea that actually samsara is a war-torn country, because samsara in general is a very dangerous place to be. Whether you're a human being who may be drawn into battle, or you may be an animal who has to avoid being eaten by predators, or if we find ourselves at the hands of abuse of various kinds, physical abuse or emotional abuse. And that one of the dangers of being a samsara is that if we're not in a situation like this now, that it's something that we're susceptible to. As long as we're in samsara, we're susceptible to some kind of violence. We're vulnerable. And so the point of that Dhamma talk, for example, and this kind of contemplation is the value and the importance of trying to find our way to Nibbana, and to put effort into our spiritual practice. Looks like a question was submitted twice.
Yeah.
We have a sadhu for one of the responses from Shadow of Label. Thank you. And then we have responses to the issue about sound, and people are able to hear us, so that's okay. That's good. And we have some Anjalis from Edward, and then Manals is chuckling at some of the comments. And then we have another comment from Julie. Another question.
When we experience the results of our thoughts, speech, and actions more quickly, is it because we have less karma to work through? Is there a relationship here? Yeah.
Okay. This is an interesting question. I've heard this question come up a few times about, for example, perhaps framed in different ways. One way was once we start practicing, does our karma start ripening more quickly? For example, a response I heard from one Longpo, one senior master, was no. Karma will do what karma will do.
Right.
And so I can't say I know. I suspect that it may be that people kind of develop faith in the doctrine of karma, and then they start kind of making connections with things. But I can't say I know. Yeah. In terms of the amount of karma to work through is an interesting teaching, perhaps related to one of the earlier questions that came up about in the suttas from the Buddha. He reportedly said that we are like a deer, and our bad karma, the results of our bad karma, is like a wolf that's hunting us. Okay. He said, as long as we have enough good karma, then we can stay ahead of the wolf. But if we don't have enough good karma, then the wolf will catch up with us.
Wow. Wow.
So it's quite, yeah, it's a little bit chilling, perhaps.
I like that.
Oops.
So Brenda asked, do you consider Buddhism to be a religion? And then it says, I have my own interpretation. I consider it a way out of samsara.
Right. Yeah. Okay. We have a positive response from Gayatri, saying thank you for the answers. We have
a person that's just like spamming.
Right. We have a number of comments from Al. Hello, Al, and a number of comments from Thomas. A number of repeated comments. We don't know if you're flooding us or if there's something technical going on with your computer. Then we go to Anjan. There we go.
Mind makes stories very often, all of which seem true at the moment. Later, some seem false, and the rest true. Do stories matter at all, or does only the present moment have value? When I read that, I'm reminded of just a talk I heard from Longpo Pasana. And I think he was referring to something he learned from Ajahn Chah. And he said, no matter what the mind says to you, say liar. And so that's what I always try. Keep in mind. The mind will trick us and tell us lots of false things.
Right. It's interesting. I was just thinking about something related to this, and it's a little bit broader than stories, but our general perception of reality. Interestingly, the Thai forest tradition, they say that the lineage of Ajahn Mun, they say that our karma works out because the jitta, the mind, actually knows the appropriate results for our actions, and it on the spiritual level is forming formations appropriate to our karma. Okay. Then we experience these formations, these sense objects. Sometimes I call them formations, sometimes I call them sense objects. We experience formations through our senses, so they're objects of our senses as well. We experience these sense objects, and we kind of project onto them through our perception, either that they have good qualities or bad qualities, or they have beautiful qualities or they unbeautiful qualities, things like this. And then the heart initiates liking or disliking based on that projection, and then attaches to them and goes chasing after them, or tries pushing them away, or interacting with them in some way, or other, being emotionally involved with them. And so the whole process is very subjective from beginning to end. But it depends on delusion, on ignorance, as we might have in the Paticca Samuppada, for example. And so if we can clear out the delusion, clear out the ignorance with mindfulness, then we can start perceiving things more accurately. And that kind of unwinds this cycle, the subjective cycle. And then so all of our perceptions and the stories also can over time become more true. We can see things more accurately. All the way up to the extent where if we eventually get samadhi, and then we start experiencing reality as it really is, in real time. And we start going through the insight knowledges and the learning experience, the kind of which I tend to think of as the learning stages, the insight knowledges, and eventually attain awakening. Okay. Right, so. Sorry, apologize. Taking some time to scroll through the submitted comments. We have quite a lot of, looks like probably all of our viewers can see these as well as we're scrolling through them. A lot of, looks like flooding. Okay. Come in here.
I'm with Manon as well, and that, like them, I am meditating at least 20-30 minutes. I am seeing improvement in my mood and concentration already. I'm also looking for resources to read the suttas.
Sadhu, wonderful. And congratulations, Gayatri. That's great. Okay, so meditating 23 minutes a day and seeing improvement in your mood and concentration already. Resources for studying the suttas. I wonder.
Always the classic is Bhikkhu's Bodhi's in the Buddha's words. That's a good introduction to the suttas, I think.
Right.
Also, I think there's also several resources online. You know, there's if you want to read the suttas, but also there's a podcast, Pali Audio, which there's a person reading all the suttas, which is a nice way to, if you're driving or if you're doing something. So it's nice just to listen to the suttas being read. I also think some of Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations are available as an audiobook. I think someone told me once the Majjhima Nikaya, his translation.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah,
Great.
you can download those.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
But yeah, in the Buddhist words is a good introduction. Excellent way of organizing the themes of all the sutras. Some of the sutras.
Right. I believe that also, if it's helpful to have an online resource also, I believe that they have, at least they used to on Sutta Central, had suttas in kind of an introductory selection of suttas. It was relatively comprehensive also. So again, the Sutta Central would be suttacentral.org.
Yeah, I think so.
Or perhaps that book by Bhikkhu Bodhi, In the Buddha's Words. Yeah. Okay. And Julie says, yes, it is her from Canada. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. Good to see you online, Julie.
Yes, good to see you. And Manal says, grateful for your responses to the sleep questions. Bhante, regarding your own question, the daily meditations are going well.
Great.
This uptick in fatigue is the most obvious physical change.
Okay. Is it? But hopefully, it's not related to meditating. I assume it wouldn't be related to meditating. It sounded like the fatigue was related to inconsistent sleep. Usually, people find that meditating would help them sleep better. So it's interesting. If you think it's connected, I'd be curious about that. Fatigue problems connected with meditating. If the meditation is causing the fatigue, I'd be interested to know about that. But I'd like to congratulate you on keeping up your practice and that they're going well. It's really heartening to hear. It can be difficult to start a new habit, so congratulations on hanging in there. Great.
And Julie says, many thanks, Venerables. I never thought about those points you shared. Super helpful.
Wonderful. Okay.
I'm glad we can provide some feedback.
Okay, getting some more positive responses to the answers. And someone is sending metta to the monastic cat, Teddy. Hope he has a good night. And another question here. Trying to move a little bit more quickly now. We're getting close to 9 o'clock already. Okay. Did I click the wrong one? So Rick Thorne, here we are. Okay.
Venerables, what are skillful uses of the will? I don't know, what is meant by the will? I don't know if it's referring to just like right effort. Again, it reminds me, it's just right effort. I don't know if
yeah, that's what comes to mind for me too. Right, I'm thinking of will. Yes, our motivation, our desire to succeed. There are ways, for example, you could talk about will as perhaps being chanda from the sutras, the one of the roads to power, related to one of the roads to power. That is developing a meditation practice on the desire to attain, for example. Using that as a foundation for our practice and this kind of motivation, or perhaps like the right energy is perhaps the most kind of like the broadest idea related to will, I think. So the right effort of the Noble Eightfold Path is the effort that we make to reduce already arisen unskillful mental states, and to keep unskillful mental states that have not yet arisen from arising, and then making an effort to give rise to skillful mental states, and to further and to develop skillful mental states that have already arisen. So it's the right effort of the Noble Eightfold Path related to attaining enlightenment is this management of our mental states, our emotions and our thoughts. So if we can make a conscious effort to focus on that with our will, make an effort in this way, then we're making it's one of the most important steps in the early stages of the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay.
What a few questions.
Oh, looks like we have Rick again. Okay.
Can you talk about the difference between trying to get things for oneself versus offering loving kindness and service to others?
Well, trying to get things for oneself. I mean, if we're talking about acquisition of things like material objects and so on, versus offering loving kindness and service to others. Well, interestingly, I think maybe from a karma point of view, questions about karma earlier, we talked about karma already. When we get things, when we're able to get things, that it's material wealth for ourselves, for example, then it is dependent upon our past good karma. They say in Thailand, if you have food to eat, then you've made good karma in the past. And so actually the karma undergirds the whole thing. Even if we work and make money to go to the store and buy food for ourselves, it actually in the mix there had to be some good karma as well. The thing is that this is coming from a good karma of the past, but getting things for ourselves doesn't make any good karma for the future. So it's kind of a debit against our karma account, you might say. Although we all have to make debits from time to time. Then if we were practicing loving kindness and service, then these are good karma themselves. And from this good karma, we experience a result in the here and now, a good feeling in the here and now, and then we experience a big positive result, a big paycheck, you might say, in the future. So they say in the suttas that if you give something to a human being, it will come back to you at least 1,000 times over. So it's quite a smart investment. And then if you practice loving kindness, it will give you much more. It's basically, paraphrase, is much more good karma than giving away even like millions of dollars in a year, over the course of a year. So you can see the cost and benefit ratio there. Between getting things for yourself and the benefits of good karma, according to Buddhism. Sound good?
Yeah,
okay.
Adrian asks, is it possible to do an action that has negative karma attached and not receive the karma? Maybe by manipulating your attention while doing the action. If something has a negative, it'll ripen. Your karma always ripens. And you can't, for lack of a better way of expressing, you can't game the system or cheat it. Like, it's a lot of karma.
I think to a large extent, like as long as you actually, if you're actually intentionally do something that is bad karma, then you have to receive the results of that as bad karma. It's good to be like aware of why you're really doing something, and what actually are your intentions. Sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking, of rationalizing our activities, and we have to kind of, it's to our own benefit to be honest with ourselves. What is it I'm intending to do? And be aware that you will have to receive the consequences of it. So yeah. The question did come up at one point. That this was this an interesting question, because sometimes the conundrums come up about, what about extreme circumstances? What do we do in extreme circumstances? A lady asked once here at the monastery, came in, she asked, what if you do something like What if you don't have any money and you need some way to feed your family, and so you steal some food for them? And say, for example, you have to feed your own children and so on. And I think it's difficult for us as human beings to not do something like that. If our own children are hungry, it's difficult for us to not do whatever it takes to make sure that they have the food that they need. And so I responded that in my experience, the master teachers would say, well, don't worry about that so much. That if you find yourself in difficult circumstances and you do something like that, don't worry about it too much. Don't beat yourself up over it. This kind of thing, and actually focus on the fact that you were trying to do something good. You were trying to get food for your family, for your children, for example. Obviously, it's not a recommendation to obviously you want to try to find another way, but this is in cases where we find ourselves in difficult circumstances. We feel like we've done something that we shouldn't have, or we're worried about our karma. We can kind of put our mind at ease in this way. I think perhaps I can offer that as a reflection.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. We just have a few more. So
a few more.
I don't think we're going to be able to answer all the questions, but we'll try to answer as many as we could.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we missed a question.
We missed a question because there's so much spam coming in, so much flooding, and someone's going to repost it. Okay, thank you. Oops, and then oh, all right. Good.
Dear Bhante, are we gaining merit by the act of recollecting the 9 qualities of the Buddha? What does it mean for it to be bonanzas? That's a John Jeff's translation, I believe. Bonanzas of merit, as stated in the Abhisanda Sutta.
When I do the recollection of the Buddha, I feel like I'm making merit. It feels good to me.
Brightens the mind.
Sure. You see the benefits of your meditation right away. I think it's one of those inspiring themes I mentioned before. It depends on having faith in the Buddha. If you have faith in the Buddha and you're practicing recollection of the Buddha, I think it can't help but be inspiring. I feel really good. They do say it's like an amazingly good form of karma. Also, I've heard this from teaching from within the lineage of Ajahn Mun as well. They say actually it really is. It's really excellent karma, and so I recommend doing a lot of it. You can make this recollection your main meditation theme. Even it's quite common in Theravadan Buddhist countries. The string of beads sometimes that meditation practitioners will wear around their necks or around their wrists typically have 108 beads on them. There's the full size, the full length ones, because the tradition is to do the recollection 108 times. And so if you have this string of beads, this rosary, then each time you go through a set of the nine qualities of the Buddha, you can move one of the beads. And so you can count off the beads in this way on the rosary. And it takes about, if you become proficient at it, after you've kind of learned the 9 qualities, and so you can chant through them pretty quickly, keeping them in mind. It takes about 40 minutes or so to do a set. And I personally, I think it's quite a powerful meditation technique. Really brings quite a bit of mindfulness and calm to the heart, as well as being inspiring also. So.
And I would just recommend also, in terms of the word, I brought this up. I would read different translations. It's always good if there's a way a certain word is translated and it doesn't make sense. Read other authors or other people's translations of that sutta to get a different idea of what a certain word means.
Okay, right. I think one of the keys to doing it, see, actually you can do the contemplation a couple of different ways. You can do it just simply as a like a mantra without meaning. I'm not sure what the best term would be for that. It could be done just as a mantra to kind of clear thinking out of the mind. So if you simply repeat the qualities of the Buddha without really thinking about their meaning too much, you can just kind of clear thinking out of the mind, which can be very nice in and of itself. If you want to get into the karma, the good karma of doing the recollection of the Buddha, then you want to be familiar with the meaning as well. So while you're actually doing the recollection, you're thinking of the meaning of each of the qualities. And so some practitioners may find it helpful to go right to using the language that they're proficient in. So if you don't know the Pali, you can go right to an English translation, for example, if you speak English. That's another recommendation I can make in relation to that. Okay.
Just have a bit more time, so we'll do speed round.
Okay, speed round. I don't know about speed round, Dhamma. That's for sure. Okay.
Yeah, that was the wrong way of putting it. Rick says his dogs are barking at Teddy. Teddy has 3.
Oh,
parents.
okay. Okay, Rick. Sure, his dogs are okay. So, Teddy's a star. Teddy's a live stream star here. Here we go.
But it appears the uptake is more obvious after the meditations began.
Yeah, wow.
I mostly always had inconsistent sleep, trying to investigate this deeper. But the physical fatigue was most obvious.
Okay. It doesn't say this is 1 of 2. Do we think this is continued, or?
I would imagine that it's continued.
I'm not sure if this is running off, Manal, if that's the end of your statement or not. Boy, there's so many comments here. Holy cow. I don't see a continuation, though, here. So we'll take this as being the end of the comment, I guess. But one of the points here she's making is what I was surprised of, that the uptick in fatigue, she's talking about the uptick in fatigue, is more obvious after the meditations began. But I've mostly always had inconsistent sleep. And so she's trying to investigate this deeper. Maybe it's hard to figure out what's going on. You have to investigate more.
I would just say sometimes with meditation, we notice things more that have always been there. It makes us more aware of something. And that's sometimes the impact of meditation or the effect of meditation. We begin meditation and then we notice something that's always been present. Because our awareness is getting sharper. And so we may notice, wow, I'm really fatigued. When we've been fatigued all this time, it's just our awareness becomes sharper and more aware.
That's so true. Right. Sound you. Okay, well, we've come to 9 o'clock now. Should we apologize to those we haven't answered and call it a night for this round? Or would you like to continue?
It's your choice, Venom.
I think we have the yogis here. We actually should at least give the yogis a chance to ask a question if anyone still is. If anyone has a question. Yes. Okay, Henry, yes.
I wanted to ask, what is the main difference between samadhi and wisdom?
The main difference between samadhi and wisdom. Okay, very good question. Right, these are the very important topics to meditators. The samadhi, you could say, is about the mind coming together, being all collected together. It's the meaning of the word samadhi. And it's kind of mental collectedness. Oftentimes also translated as concentration. So all collected together. And then once we have the mind all collected together, then the entire mind altogether can learn. And so we use our wisdom to investigate. So for example, if we're investigating our sensory experience in meditation, from the point of view of the Buddha's teachings, we would, for example, a straightforward way is to investigate the impermanence of our sensory experience. Which means that while we're meditating, be aware and notice the impermanence. So, for example, with the breath, noticing the breath from the beginning through its change all the way to the end. As we use our wisdom to investigate, and then so the entire heart can see this and experience it in that way, and can thoroughly learn this wisdom to a deeper level, we might say.
So does samadhi have to be like the profound of, in order to, like the profound of wisdom, like is that like the base of, like is that the base in order to attain wisdom?
Right. You need the morality also. But yeah, so if you look at like the Noble Eightfold Path, for example, you need to have this in order to attain enlightenment, you have to have all 3 aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path: the morality, the concentration, and the wisdom. And you need some wisdom to get started. So according to the sutras, it says right view comes first. But then also the path kind of goes around, you might say, I guess, in a way, if I come up with a metaphor on the spot, kind of comes around because it culminates in the thorough learning of this wisdom also. But samadhi is definitely, you have to have it in order to get it.
Right. And if the mind's agitated, wisdom can be developed. It's just like if you're sitting in a classroom and there's a lesson and you're thinking, oh, I want to do this later, I want to do all these things, you're not going to absorb that lesson. And so that's what really samadhi does. It calms the mind, it stills the mind, so we can really have that wisdom can develop.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, thank you. I'm just kind of confused because I was reading this book called The Taste of Freedom. It's actually over there by Ajahn Chah. And he was saying, well, it was originally a recording that has been translated. So the way it appeared to me was that wisdom and samadhi was different. Yeah, like it was two different things. And like I was sort of kind of understanding it with like the analogies that he was using, but I was also kind of confused. Maybe I can show it to you later.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I'd be interested to see it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So, any other late night Dhamma questions? Some of us were talking about doing Nesijig later on. This is nothing but Nesijig standards. So. But Nesijig all night sitting meditation, or walking meditation visual. Okay, everyone is quiet. Okay, I think we'll wrap up for this evening. Okay, we're going to do 3 sadhus maybe. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
And apologies to everyone whose questions we didn't get to. Please feel free next week. We'll have monk chat again.
Right.
And you can submit them then. And if you live close to the monastery, again, there's a program. You can come to the monastery tomorrow night and also Sunday.
That's right, Sunday afternoon. Sadhu.
Thank you all, and everyone have a good
weekend. And the stubborn computer. Okay. End the broadcast.